I can pretty confidently say that when I first got into silver stacking, one of the things that made the least amount of sense to me, or maybe was a little bit more difficult for me to figure out, was constitutional silver, otherwise known as junk silver, otherwise known as 90% silver. It's got a lot of names. That took me a little bit to figure out as well, but if you're new to stacking, I feel like this is a very important part of stacking, especially if you are more of the prepping for potential barter situations. I think most people would agree that barter situations are where constitutional silver could really come in handy. So I'm going to give you the numbers on how much silver exactly is in these coins, what's worth stacking, what's not worth stacking, and hopefully you learn something new. Even if you've been stacking a while, hopefully this clears up a couple questions you may have about it. Let's get into the video. Welcome back to another video on the channel. My name is Silver Augustine. I really do appreciate you clicking on the video today. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learned something new. If you do, give it a like, leave a comment down below, help some interaction. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so I'd appreciate it if you help me out with that. But let's get into the video. Right off the bat, I'm just going to go ahead and simplify and say that, to cut to the chase, any half dollar, quarter, or dime made 1964 and earlier is going to be 90% silver or constitutional or junk silver. So now that we've got that out of the way, I'm going to actually show you a few different pieces, explain to you about the years those were made, what would be the best to stack, what's worth the most, how many individual coins of each type you would need to have a combined total of at least 1 troy ounce of silver. So let's jump right into it with this 1964 JFK half dollar. This obviously 90% silver. This specific half dollar was only minted with 90% silver in the year 1964. That's when they started making the JFK half dollars. Every year after that is not going to be a 90% silver. So if you find a 1964 JFK, that's going to be your 90%, the only one JFK that they actually made like that. I'm also about to show you here a Walking Liberty half dollar. The Walking Liberty half dollar obviously made before 1964, so that's going to be 90% silver as well. You have multiple different types of half dollars, quarters, and dimes. And I may make another video about that in the future to get in a little bit more detail on that. But the Walking Liberty half dollar was made from 1916 to 1947. So there's more of the Walking Liberties than there are the JFKs, obviously. So it's a pretty common coin to see when people stack half dollars for 90% silver. Now these 90% silver half dollars, whether it be the JFK, the Walking Liberty, or I'm going to show you here the Benjamin Franklin, they also have a Barber half dollar. These all contain 0.36169 troy ounces of silver per coin. And if you do the math on that, you would need 3 coins to hit 1 troy ounce of silver. If you have any three of these halves, you would have exactly 1.08 troy ounces of silver. So it'll be just a little over a troy ounce, but you'll need 3 coins in order to hit that. So for that being said, usually these go for about a third of whatever spot price is. The premiums aren't usually super duper high on constitutional silver, and for that reason a lot of people prefer to stack that because it's a more affordable way to get your weight in silver. It's also minted by the US government. It's recognized, it's respected. People will understand that it is proper currency and that it is worth something. And it's pretty common knowledge that these coins minted before 1965 contain silver in them. So if you educate yourself on how much you have, you'll have a little bit better idea of what it actually is worth. That being said, 90% half dollars are a pretty well sought after form of constitutional silver. So definitely worth the money. Now moving on to the next piece of constitutional is going to be the quarter. The 90% silver quarter. Each one of these quarters contains 0.17875 troy ounces of silver. So 6 quarters totals exactly 1.07 troy ounces of silver. So Again, just like the half dollars, a little bit more than 1 ounce. By far the most common quarter to stack is going to be just the regular Washington quarter, and those were made from 1932 to 1964. Obviously made them past that, but 1964 was the last year they were made with silver in them. If you ever get your hands on a roll of quarters, dimes, or half dollars, you can just look at the edges of these coins, look at the rims, and you can see they're going to be pure silver all the way through, unlike the quarters, dimes, and half dollars made without silver. They're going to be two-toned. The Washington quarter was not the only quarter. They actually started making 90% silver quarters back as early as 1796. But the Washington quarters are always the go-to for stackers. Now we move on to the dimes. Dimes are the cheaper and more affordable to stack because obviously they are smaller and they have less silver content compared to the quarters and the half dollars. Now, in this video, I'm only showcasing the Roosevelt dimes, also known as Rosies. These are also the most plentiful dime to stack. Mercury dimes are preferred by a lot of people for several different reasons. Like I said, I may make another video about the other types of 90%, but for the most part, Roosevelts are going to be what's the majority of most people stack. The dime has 0.0723 troy ounces of silver in it. It takes 14 dimes to make 1.01 troy ounces of silver, and the Roosevelts were made from 1946 to 1964. Now, for the most part, everything that we've talked about in this video, I've pretty much stuck to calling 90% silver or constitutional. This is a little bit more what I kind of consider to be junk silver. So this right here is a 40% silver JFK half dollar. These were made from 1965 to 1970. So they started making the Kennedys in 64, and that was the one that was 90% silver. And then they made them all the way up to 1970 with 40% silver. Now, because of that drastic difference in percentage, each one of these only has 0.1479 troy ounces. That's about double what those small dimes have. So it takes 7 of these halves to equal 1.03 troy ounces of silver. So here's a few different ones here. Because it does have silver in it, they do tone. That's honestly the only reason I got some of these, is because it is fun to buy a couple. They're pretty cheap. You can usually get them for about $4 or $5 right now with the spot price of silver. It's fun to give as gifts to little brothers, little cousins, anyone that's young that might be interested in having some silver. It's pretty cheap. This stuff doesn't resell very well at all, so I would not stack this. Again, I would not stack this. It does not resell well at all. People are not interested in this other than for anything besides really just a novelty. But if you're able to get your hands on it for a cheap price, maybe one day it could be used in a barter situation. Definitely not something that would be more on the desirable end of things. But again, if you have 7 of them, it does equal a little over 1 troy ounce of silver. So they're not completely worthless. They're just not very good to stack because they don't resell very well. If you stack for barter, go ahead and grab some if you can find them cheap. Otherwise, I would not even bother unless you're going to give them out as gifts to people. And the same goes for these little guys. These right here are war nickels. These were made from 1942 to 1945. It was during the war when we needed nickel more than we needed silver. So they took the 35% of nickel that was in our nickels, took it out, and replaced it with silver. So these, from 1942 to 1945, these war nickels were 35% silver, which is only 0.05626 troy ounces of silver. The math on that equates to 18 nickels will get you 1.01 troy ounces of silver. So these are very cheap. These usually go for about $1 to $1.50 a piece. It'll get you a little bit of silver, but they do not resell nearly at all. These actually resell worse than 40% JFKs. Now on to something I didn't even know existed until at least several weeks or maybe a month or two after I started stacking. I didn't realize that these 90% silver coins come with tubes made specifically for them. Now, if you already knew that, feel free to laugh at my ignorance, but I did not know that, and I know that I'm not the only one. So I have a few here I'm going to show you. This one right here, obviously made for dimes. You can get these on Amazon for about $1 to $2 a piece. They hold 50 coins, which is going to be $5 face value. Very handy, very stackable, doesn't take up a lot of space, very secure. You can fill it all the way to the top and it doesn't jiggle or shake. Same goes for this quarter tube right here. And these as well you can get on Amazon very cheaply. A pack of 10 you can get for $13 right now. So they're not bad at all. Each one of these holds 40 coins, which is $10 in face value in quarters. So you can stack quite a bit of silver in here. It's going to take up more space than the dimes would, of course, but helps you keep account of how many you have, how much face value you have. It'll give you an idea of how much weight you're going to have. If this thing is all the way full, you're going to have just under 7 troy ounces of silver in that tube. And last but not least, this is what the half-dollar tube looks like. Little stubby, little short, but gets the job done. This little tube will fit 20 half dollars, which is exactly $10 in face value. This tube, along with the quarter tube, is going to be just under 7 troy ounces of silver. If you have a tube of dimes, you're only going to have about 3.5 troy ounces of silver. So the dime tube, you'll have 3.5 troy ounces of silver. The quarter tube and the half-dollar tube all the way full, you're going to have almost 7 troy ounces of silver. That's going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you did, I really do appreciate it. I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions or if you have any other video ideas or anything that I could do better in this video, please put it down in a comment below and I would love to read it. I will respond to it and hopefully I can implement that in the next video. Please leave a like and please enjoy the rest of your day.